Manx Cancer Help is 30 years old this year, and I've been lucky enough to be working here for the past 6 years exactly. We've changed the charity a little bit during the last 6 years, and I think that we're still quite low profile on the Isle of Man. Perhaps not everybody realises exactly what services we're offering to anybody who lives on the Isle of Man whose life is affected by cancer. Being diagnosed with cancer changes your life, and Eve Berridge started Manx Cancer Help 30 years ago because she realised what the problems for people were, and they haven't changed since. We're just doing it on a bigger scale now, and we've changed the charity in line with requirements of running a modern psychological therapy service. We have a clinical psychologist that supports the service, is the clinical lead, who visits the island 2 days a month, and his work is funded by the Isle of Man Anti-Cancer Association, and we're really grateful to them for that. Apart from that funding, all the funding that supports what we're doing at Manx Cancer Help and all of our plans and hopes for the future will come entirely from money raised from the Isle of Man public.
Derek Peters is the chairman of the Cancer Services User Forum and a director of Manx Cancer Help. He has also been a cancer patient.
When you're first diagnosed with cancer, there's several things that go through your mind. When am I going to die? How long have I got? Do I need to put my affairs in order? And then secondary, you start worrying about the family and the relatives, and you start thinking about your own parents and their longevity compared with your longevity. So it's quite an emotional ride, but a very focused ride for the person who's diagnosed with cancer. Whilst you're going through treatment, you're going into, you're shepherded or into buildings, you're seeing doctors, you're seeing nurses, you're seeing your relatives, your family. You're surrounded by lots and lots of people who care. And with cancer, because you're going through a long process, so you may be doing 5 or 6 years of going to a hospital where the doors open for you, you walk into artificial light, it's all the same, light oak doors, light teak doors, magnolia walls. You're doing that forever. And sometimes you just need somewhere where you can go, and for example here, you have to open the door, it's got a clunk on the door, so you know you're going in somewhere, so it's not a swish, it's a clunk. And you come in and you can sit down here and you can talk to people about what you bought for shopping, you can talk to people about your fears, you can talk to people about what your husband feels or your wife feels or your partner feels or your children feel. And that's really, really important for the patient to know that if he or she curls up into a bubble and then becomes very insular, because you do, because you're protecting yourself as well as everyone else, that there's somewhere to come that you can bring your family and you know that they'll be received well, and it's a relaxing area within which you can start to deal with things. I look at a doctor and I think, well, the doctor can cure me. He might be able to cure my cancer. When I look at places like this, I think they may not cure the cancer, but they'll probably cure my soul. And I think we're missing a point when we look at cancer. It affects your soul, it affects your very, very being, and sometimes that's missed when we talk about it. It's not an illness, it's almost a way of life. It does dictate everything you do from point 1 to point 101.
1 in 3 people will actually be touched by cancer altogether. And so on the Isle of Man, we're probably looking with a population of 80,000, upwards of 25,000 people. Most people actually, after the initial shock and after they had time to talk it over with their family, most people do quite well psychologically, but maybe about a quarter of those people find it very difficult to cope, and that lasts and lasts, and they can maybe develop depression or anxiety, and it's these people who we try to help directly with the psycho-oncology service. But obviously it's not only the patients who are touched by cancer, but it's relatives, it's children, it's wives, it's grandparents, it's work colleagues. Cancer touches more people than just the patient. We lay quite a lot of store on actually training other health and social care professionals in psychological methods of care.
Alex Cowley is undergoing prolonged treatment for his cancer and feels strongly about sharing his experiences and learning from them.
I dealt with it in a very immature fashion really. I was only 21, so I sort of just, you know, I thought I was invincible, so I thought, yeah, this is going to be, you know, easy. The change from when you're first diagnosed to the process you go through, you're always adapting, because that original feeling probably did help me get better, but I definitely had to learn how to cope and almost like adapt to my environment really. I went to hospital in an environment where it's so safe, you know, and you're with people who are going exactly the same through. It's almost like being in a group at school, you know, and it's great in there, you know, and you wouldn't think it would be, but it's great in the sense that you've got people who can completely relate with you. You come home to your friends and, you know, the people, everyone around you, and they haven't seen what you've seen, and they're all just living life. And it really becomes, because you've got to be so much more laid back, so much more, not laid back, but you've got to be so much more, you know, live a slower life, whereas they live a quicker life and they're getting on with things. It becomes like you're just by yourself. It's not a nice feeling, you know, especially at 23, because you do feel alone. When you're at work or when you're doing stuff constantly, you don't tend to think about things as much. When you're at home, you can watch telly, your mind will just drift. And the problem with snowballing thoughts all the time is it leads to a state of depression really. So I came and got psychological help and got assessed for quite a few weeks, and they decided that I needed, you know, to relax and do relaxing techniques. It made me go from thinking all day to going, why am I even thinking about this? Because it's just thoughts. It's just what you're creating in your head. It's not actually the real picture. And from that, I've actually become a lot more productive again. And, you know, I'm out playing a lot. And even though I'm not 100%, I'm using my time well. And I'm not paying attention to my thoughts, all because of these relaxing techniques.
Alex and a group of other young people who've had similar experiences have set up a support group for any young person aged between 16 and 25 who've been affected by cancer. It's called CHAT, that is Cancer Help Awareness Togetherness, and is held at Cafe Lair in Douglas on alternative Wednesday evenings. It is facilitated by Manx Cancer Help, but is being totally shaped by the young people involved as they best know what support they need.
Support is all you need, in my opinion. And if there's a group there, especially for kids, young adults, who are in a world where people, how do, you know, young adults understand, because they're not used to being ill, so they can't empathise. They've got this group where they can feel completely safe, you know, and completely at ease, and just be themselves, which is very hard to do if you're an open person. You can't be open with people that haven't got cancer because it's just so hard to understand. Or people that haven't been affected by cancer, and that doesn't happen to young people, it doesn't tend to happen to young people. It's very alienating. And I think if there's a group there, it can restore confidence and really make what can be a really horrible experience you have to deal with by yourself, not maybe necessarily an easy experience, but a lot easier to deal with, and that's what's important.
I'm Ali Martin, and I've been the fundraising coordinator at Manx Cancer Help for the last 18 months. As we are a small team, I have a diverse role within the charity, which means that on drop-in days on a Tuesday, I come into contact with the people using our service, which really brings home to me the importance of the work that I do. During my time at Manx Cancer Help, we have raised the profile of the charity considerably and are holding some very unusual and fun events. It is important to me to work closely with whichever company or individual is organising an event for us to make sure that not only the charity benefits, but that we are also able to raise the profile of whoever is holding the event, in whichever way they want to. Our service has expanded considerably, and funding allowing will continue to do so over the coming years. We are not able to raise £250,000 a year to maintain and expand the service through events alone. It becomes increasingly important to bring in sustained and regular income to secure our future. We only ever hold a maximum of 2 years running costs in reserve, as it is our policy to invest monies raised straight back into the service. It is clear that the need for expansion of the service that are at present far beyond what we are able to raise, and it is so important to us to provide this essential service to help anyone affected by cancer. We are very keen to find new ways to increase our income.
1 in 3 people will be affected by cancer during their lifetimes, and that's just the people who are diagnosed. And with every patient comes a whole family. And also those people who are not going to survive their illness. It helps them to deal with whatever the outcome is going to be for them. So psychological support has been a very much undervalued and is really coming into its own, and we're delighted that we're at the forefront of that on the Isle of Man.